Good afternoon, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. Thank you all for coming out for tonight's city council meeting. Let the record show that all members are present except, is she in route here, Councilwoman Gonzalez, and she's probably en route. Let the record show that all council members are present. We will have the invocation by Mr. Emilio and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Sagara. Would you please stand?
Heavenly Father, we gather together this day, and I pray that your wisdom be with the entire city council. I pray that your will be done, that there be peace and safety in this environment. In Jesus' name.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Emilio. Would you please all silence your phone? Approval of agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda? Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we approve tonight's agenda as printed.
Councilmember Boyd.
Second.
Thank you both. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. We will now have citizen comments. Mr. Carlos Herrera.
Good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I'm a government student traveling through Texas, so I wanted to kind of report back since I was last here. I had a few questions. My biggest concerns now are wanting to get involved in PFAS chemicals, forever chemicals. We have
Sir,
wildfires.
That is not on the agenda.
Okay.
You have to speak on the items that are on tonight's agenda.
Okay.
And there is an agenda over there, if you go look at it. And if it's something that you would like to discuss on the agenda, I will call you back up just for you to speak on those items.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Levi Bannigan. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm speaking on item number 13, the discussion to repeal the youth curfew ordinance. It's brought to my attention that we're being asked to repeal that youth curfew ordinance because it's in conflict with state law and there's a potential for lawsuit regarding the youth ordinance. It ties into another concern that I have with kind of the way things with the city council and kind of decisions are being made. There's back and forth with Bell County and the suit with the marijuana ordinance. And while I'm sympathetic to some of these changes and reforms that be made, whether it be the youth ordinance, the marijuana ordinance, or different things that are taken action on by the city council, my concern is the city spending money and losing efforts. We have the state coming back and telling us that we need to repeal that youth ordinance, or the county wants to file suit regarding the marijuana ordinances. Like I said, I'm sympathetic to a lot of these things, but I don't want the city to continue to, burn money through the money machine, fighting losing efforts. We need to keep in mind, if we're not on the same page as the state or the county or what have you that kind of has those higher level authorities, we should try to work in tandem with what the county and state is looking for, rather than, like I said, if it's just going to wind up a losing effort for the taxpayers in the long run, then maybe those things should be taken up elsewhere. If the state's saying that, we don't have the ability to do a youth curfew ordinance, just nix it, take that through the right channels, and let's not wait, spend taxpayer money in losing efforts. That's really all I've got to say on that.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, sir, for your comments on that topic. I just wanted to provide a few points of clarity. A couple of the main differences between these two issues is, number one, the Proposition A that you're referring to for the decriminalization of marijuana had a legal election where 70% of the voters said that they wanted it. That hasn't been the case for the curfew ordinance. The second thing is the state via House bill provided this prohibition for cities to enforce a curfew ordinance. There has not been a similar House bill saying that cities cannot have decriminalization ordinances specifically in place. So just a couple of differences there, but I get what you're saying. And as far as spending taxpayer dollars, the county attorney gets paid about 3 times what the city is choosing to spend defending this lawsuit that the county filed. So if anyone is spending taxpayer dollars, it would be the county. So thank you.
Mr. Javon? Sir, apologize for not pronouncing your last name. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. I apologize for printing it so poorly. I'm here for the rezoning. Apologize if I signed up for the wrong section, but was here to answer any questions that council might have regarding the request to rezone the SSK lodging property to a multifamily development called Avenue Heights.
Well, sir, right now they don't have any questions, but maybe when that subject come up, if you don't, what's your last name?
Harris.
Harris?
Harris.
Oh, Lord, okay.
Bad.
That's all right,
penmanship.
sir.
Okay.
That's okay. But if they do have any questions, I will call you back up.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, sir. I just put that for public hearing. Sean Price? Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. I got 2 sections here, the public hearing and the comment section. Which one are we on?
So you're on the comment session, and you are talking about number 23125 and 23116.
Correct. Okay. I had questions as to, with this ditch retaining wall and the repair of it, what are we actually buying? What are we paying for? As well as what is the running cost for this wall? Because the wall has to be maintained once we build it. We're going to have to maintain that wall in the future. So what were the estimated costs, overrunning costs for building this wall? With the reject for all bids, the reasoning behind that from last week, what I understood is that we don't have any money for it. Now, this area is in near where I live for this improvement for the drainage ditch there. East Bryce Street gets flooded every time we get a major rain. It's just over the street, over the bridge, and just fills up underneath my house. So I'm wondering why we're going to reject all bids for improving that portion of the drainage section. why we don't have because that's been on the books for over 3 years now, if I remember correctly, why we don't have the money any longer for that improvement. So those are my questions.
Thank you, sir.
Huh?
Mr. Cagle? Would you please be so kind?
Sure, I'll do my best. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Bermuda ditch repair, it's going to be concrete. It's going to be the primary cost, and maintenance on that would be pretty close to nothing unless it had to be replaced again. And then as far as the drainage project, the reasoning for rejecting bids was that the lowest bid was more than twice what the budget was for the project. And so the recommendation was to give it some time and come back and rebid the project at a later date when perhaps prices have settled down a little bit. That's the thought. There's no guarantee on that.
Thank you. Melissa Brown?
One question to that brick,
Sir?
the concrete wall.
Sir, when the meeting is over, Mr. Cagle, would you follow up with him so we can continue on? Thank you, Mr. Price. Melissa Brown, you have 4 minutes, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure I don't have to inform the council how important our agreement with KISD is for the Fire Academy program. Not only is it beneficial to the city in bringing forward potential hires for our fire department in the future, it also gives our young people a lifelong skill and a career path to go down. This is not anything that's going to cost the city money. Our expenses are all going to be covered up underneath the agreement that we have. And if we exceed a certain amount of students and we manage to fill a class, and we get additional money as per the agreement. So I think that this would be a great one to support. My questions start with the STR, the short-term rental compliance services. There's some confusing things in and of itself within the presentation as far as how this is going to work. What fund is this being paid out of? Because it's not able to come out of the hot fund. That can only go to pay for expenses that bring in tourism and hotel dollars. Be the same as trying to say that we would pay for renovations to Shiloh out of the hot tax, and we can't do that. I'm also concerned with it because under our agreement right now, or our ordinance that we currently have, the fire department is supposed to send fire marshals out to every one of the alleged short-term rentals that we have in the city. If I use my house once for a weekend and I let someone rent it because I'm going to be out of town, does that mean I have to register as a short-term rental? How far in advance? Because if the fire marshal isn't able to get out there, if I make rapid plans, then what good does that do? But also, we all know that all of our departments are overstretched, and in the unfunded decision packets, the fire department and fire prevention on page 4 asked for 2 new fire inspectors. That was unfunded. Somehow we funded a park planner when we have 7 parks in the city that we're not currently maintaining at all because we don't have the funds or the staffing for it. But we're going to hire a new park planner and not the personnel that would take care of doing these inspections the city council has mandated by ordinance. Like someone to explain to me how any of that makes sense and where the priorities actually are if this is indeed the case. Then there becomes the question of looking over all of the different expenditures and revenues that are coming in under this agreement. So $255 per property as an expenditure, adjusted annually at the beginning of each term of the agreement. So we're actually going to pay this company $255 per property when the services actually are all basically the same thing, repeated in different ways under the first 2 bullet points on the first slide of that presentation. There's more questions here than I have time to really get into because I do have one other set of questions, and that would be on the Arts Commission recommendations. Every year prior to this, I've seen a year-over-year comparison to what any organization received the prior year, how their spending went, what they received. It is neither in the presentation nor is it in the recommendations. In the recommendations, there's also a scoring for each one of the organizations that has requested money. And I want to know how we come to that average score and how we determine based on that average score what the amount of money each organization is going to get, because some of these do more and bring in more tourism than other organizations.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Mr. Cagle or counsel, if you'd like to answer any of those questions, please do it this time. Mr. Cagle, no one? Ms. Anka, good afternoon. You have 4 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. I like what I saw in the presentation regarding youth curfew ordinance to comply with state law. I think it's a great idea to comply with state law. But just like the previous person said, why don't we comply with state law regarding all ordinances? There are several ordinances, not just the marijuana ordinance. Bottom line, whatever reason you came up with that ordinance, it does not comply with state law. So which one is it? Do we want to comply with state law or not? We can't pick and choose which law we're going to comply with. Laws don't ask you if you agree with them. If that were the case, when you get pulled over by an officer, you can say, "Officer, I do not agree with 35 miles an hour speed limit. I think it should be 50. Therefore, I should not pay a ticket." It doesn't work that way. The law is the law, whether you like it or not. And does that mean that from now on, we're going to make sure that all ordinances comply with state law? And if we find an ordinance that does not comply with state law, how do we go about changing it so it does comply? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leo Gukheisen. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes. Would you please silence your phones or electronic devices?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Temp, City Manager, City Council members, staff, and residents. First, I'd like to say this will be possibly my last time in a short while to address y'all on Tuesdays because of football season starting. And as a TASO official, I have games on Tuesdays. So I should be here later on, but not having the time to address y'all. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But one of the things I talk about today real quick is the Tremere Road, 10th Street Hallmark Drainage improvement bid being rejected. Rejecting the bid does not seem to be the right thing. The city has already spent funds in the budget process, the bidding process and staff time on this, just to go ahead and shelf it. This is an important project, I feel, and I think the city at one time did, or they would not have spent all this money and time and effort into it. This is more than just a construction safety or a construction project. It's more of a safety issue for the residents in the area, because that area does flood almost as bad as Bunny Trail and Stan Schroeder when we get a heavy rain. And the justification of it hasn't rained in a while does not seem to be a justification to shelf this. In the past, the council has found funds to fund things that were not budgeted. It's not the issue that the engineers underestimated the cost of this project. I don't know what formula they use, what data they use, but, I think that the council should reconsider and approve this for a safety issue to the residents in that area. The next item is 23-129, awarding the bid of the sewer main on Tremere Creek. A minute ago, staff says we got to reject one. Now they want to approve one. This is more of a sweetheart deal, if you ask me, for KISD than anybody. The total is 1.5 million. They're only paying 750,000, and the city's picking up the rest of it. Now, whoever makes these agreements needs to relook them, because the city's getting hosed on it. You know, KISD's sitting there, they have a 50 million plus profit from their last year budget, according to the articles in the Daily Herald. They got 50 million, they can put up more than 750,000. On these things, the city is getting, hosed by them, if you ask me personally. Next one is the hotel occupancy collection and short-term rental compliance. This, I read over the agreement and everything. This is a sweetheart deal for this company. I won't have time to go into everything, but if someone could, in Exhibit B, if they could explain to the residents B.1, B.4, the additional counseling, and the rate of the each house, because on your slide presentation, it counts up for 42 houses at 175. What if it's more than 42 properties, excuse me? What if it's 50 properties? Now, these things should be explained to everybody so they know what's going on. It's not a secret. We should keep, just inform everybody the whole story behind it.
Sir, your 4 minutes are up.
May I have 1 more minute, please, ma'am? I have one more topic.
Counsel, 1, 2, no, no. What's yours? 3 yeses, 4 yeses. Okay, yes, sir, 1 minute.
My last item is the repeal of the youth curfew. It seems that the city was in a hurry to jump on this bandwagon to repeal it because of the law that's going into effect on 1 September. It was brought up earlier in conversation by the board about that this is a state law, and there's no state law regarding the decriminalization of marijuana. And I have opposed you to look at House Bill 2127, which basically states that any ordinance that is in violation of state law, which this ordinance Prop A is in fact illegal, and it should be repealed. Harker Heights did it. Other places have done
Sir,
it.
are we still talking about the curfew?
Yeah, that was part of the curfew, ma'am. That the city is willing to be gung-ho on getting rid of curfews, where now you're going to have 13, 14-year-old kids on the street at 2 o'clock in the morning, which makes no sense. I don't know why the state even agreed to pass that one. But you're on the hurry to repeal that one.
Yes, sir.
But you have another one.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gukaisen. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I would, again, reiterate what I stated earlier, but if for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I am not a licensed attorney, and I'm not sure if you are, sir, but I would leave the interpretation of the law to the attorneys and the courts. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is in relation to the first comment relating to Bermuda Ditch. If we could get staff clarification on why or when we may go back to rebid this project so the public is aware.
Mr., would you repeat that question? Make sure the secretary,
Sure.
city secretary get that.
Sure, relating to Bermuda Ditch, when does the city plan to put that out for bid again? Should we not move forward with it now?
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Boyd. Mr. Kagan.
Come on up. It's not Bermuda Ditch. That one, we're recommending award. It's the Hallmark.
The Hallmark one, that's my mistake.
So the Hallmark ditch is the one we're actually recommending to reject the bids. We're going to look at doing in the first of the year. We got to let prices kind of settle down, let materials start to get in stock, and just really find out why the prices were so outrageously high. So we're looking, get through the winter, get through the holidays, and then come back again in late winter, early spring.
Understood. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Michael Fornino. Good afternoon, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Good evening. With regard to the repeal of the youth curfew, unfortunately, that's the right thing to do in compliance with state law. I would encourage members of council to start making legislative inroads to ask Austin to rethink their thinking on that. As this does not go into effect until 1 September, I will point out to the council that there's also an ordinance on the books that went back into effect back in June that was effective the date it was signed, Chapter 6 on the Animal Code for the TNR, and the city doesn't even seem to know that that exists. With regard to legality and illegality, Mr. Alvarez, I don't need to be a surgeon or have an MD to know a bad doctor when I see one.
Mr. Fornino.
He opened the door, Madam Mayor. He opened the door on this.
Mr. Fornino, if you want to address him, come through me. We don't address them directly. You can say, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, a member of your council, okay, trying to make the comparison that someone needs a law degree to know how to interpret law, okay? What if, in the hypothetical, who would have thought that this marijuana ordinance would have been on the books to begin with? What if people got together and decided, hey, let's suspend the 4th Amendment, or even the 19th Amendment? For those not tracking, the 19th Amendment would be the right for women to vote. Just because the voters voted for it in town, does that make it any more legal? No, it does not. I would strongly encourage certain members of your council to review basic civics, and if they still don't understand it, they need to write an angry letter to their high school and complaint as to why they were so ill-equipped to address such issues. So, again, with several speakers, when it comes to what is legal, what is not legal, and interpretation, I'm sorry. I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out basic stuff that most of us, if we were paying attention, would have learned this and had it hammered into our heads in 8th grade. So there are issues that the city does need to address with regard to the animal ordinance, Chapter 6, TNR ordinance, which, again, was signed with such enthusiasm down at Austin, it became law back in June, not 1 September. So I would request that the council take a look at that and assign the same expedience and due diligence to that as they have with the youth curfew. Again, I don't agree with the youth curfew being repealed, but that's what the state law is, and we're going to follow through with that one. So again, make legislative inroads with Dr. Buckley and all the other folks that we can down in Austin and say, plead our case, and say, I'm sure we're not the only town that could plead that case and say, hey, this is why this is a bad idea, but let's do it the right way. So, I mean, so when it comes to leaving it to the lawyers with the law, no, that just does not fly. I mean, the lawyer who told half-truths and twisted civics and has never tried a case in her life, who has a few people in this room under their spell, I'm sorry, reality check says that, as a few speakers before me, law is law. And we can go round and round and argue that one, and you'll lose against me every single time.
Mr. Carlos, did you find anything on the agenda that you would like to talk about?
No, ma'am. I just liked some of the stuff I see, especially some of the future programs I see here, as much as all of this focuses on the agenda next year. So I look forward to doing my homework and coming back and asking some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, this city council, we do believe in having a curfew for our youth. If that was not the case, we would have never put one in place. And I do understand the concerns. Some feel that we should keep it and some feel like we should not. But we do care about our youth safety. We do not want them on the streets all times of night and morning. So it was a decision that was made much higher than us, and we will follow that decision by the state. Madam Secretary, it's discussion items. Council, you have 3 minutes to speak 3 times on this one item.
DS 23085, discuss procedures for councilmember inquiries and council investigations.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I requested this item to place a procedure. We all talk about transparency and good government. I think this does that. There's no rush to do it, and I hope each council member had a chance to look at it. And if anybody has any questions about any specific item. So what I did was research other cities in Texas that had something similar, that was similar to our size. Put together some stuff and sent it to the city attorney where she could make sense of it into a legal form that fits into our documents. And I think what she's done here, as I said last week, does exactly that. The first part sets up procedure for council members to conduct an inquiry. The second part does a procedure for a full council investigation, always at the will of the council. The next part had to do with how we will conduct a hearing, and I think actually having this publicized or published actually sets us up for success. Thank you.
Any other council members have any comments before I speak? Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree wholeheartedly that we need some sort of procedure in place for this because the voters, again, this was an item that the voters voted for, so it's in the city's charter, but there is no process or procedure in how to carry it out. So I think that it is definitely important that we get something in place. What I would ask, though, is that we table this to continue to work on it. I think there needs to be a clear definition of what valid cause is. There needs to be some qualifying events or evidence of wrongdoing before an inquiry or an investigation should take place, so we're not wasting time and efforts. And I think at that point, if there's not clarity in there, you could start an investigation on somebody just because you didn't like them or because they looked at you the wrong way, and I don't think that that would be valid or just. So those are my thoughts.
Mayor Pro Tem Cobb.
I agree with Councilman Alvarez. Can I second his motion? Do we want to consider it a motion to
It's a
table?
motion of, is this a motion of direction that we table this and we don't have a date when it's going to come back or anything?
I would make that motion, and I would say if we could work with staff and our city attorney to come up with something that we think works and meets that criteria, and then bring it back at that time.
So, okay, and we have a second to that motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Solomon. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to communicate that I believe that the document is well-written as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. So to table it and work with staff until it's an agreement between staff and council, it passes 5-2 with Adams and Councilmember Adams and Councilmember Boyd is against tabling it. Consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, real quick, on the same topic, can I get, there's another council member that could sit with me and the city attorney.
I just believe we can work this out because everyone may have their own opinion, what they like or don't like.
No, I was asking even if you could send me with the individually, or to the city attorney.
I think as council, they have the right, I can't tell them that, they have the right to sit down and give their viewpoints. So this, we already voted on it, and according to our governor's standards and expectation, once we vote on something, there is no more discussion on that item. Consent agenda, Madam Secretary.
LMN 23018, consider minutes of special city council meeting of July 18th, 2023. LMN 23019, consider minutes of regular city council meeting of July 25th, 2023. LMN 23020, consider minutes of special city council meeting of August 1st, 2023. RS 23125, consider a memorandum resolution awarding bid number 2335 Bermuda Ditch Retaining Wall Repair to NNAC, Inc. in the amount of $369,848.14. RS 23126, consider a memorandum resolution to reject all bids for bid number 2338 Tremere Road, 10th Street at Hallmark Avenue Drainage Improvement. RS 23127, consider a memorandum resolution supporting the City of Killeen's application for the 2023 Transportation Alternatives Grant for Chaparral Road. RS 23128, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the approval of the interlocal agreement with the Killeen Independent School District for the Fire Academy program. RS 23129, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the award of bid number 2340 Sewer Main in Tremere Creek Basin Project to JM Pipeline LLC in the amount of $1,540,446. RS 23130, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the procurement of a camera van for the Public Works Sanitary Sewer Division in the amount of $277,896. RS 23131, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the award of RFP 2317 for hotel occupancy tax collection and short-term rental compliance services to Avenue in the amount of $135,000 for FY24. RS 23132, consider a memorandum resolution approving the Clean Arts Commission grant recommendations for fiscal year 2024. OR 23015, consider an ordinance repealing the Youth Curfew Ordinance, Chapter 16, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances. The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance amending Chapter 16, Miscellaneous Provisions and Offenses, Article 5, Youth Curfew of the City of Killeen's Code of Ordinances, repealing youth curfew regulations, providing a repealer clause, providing for a severability clause, providing for savings clause, providing for publication, and an effective date."
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, is there any items that you would like to pull before I request a motion? With that being said, Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I would like to pull RS 23-131, and mainly there were some questions, specific questions asked, if staff could answer those.
Any other council member have anything that they would like to pull? Mrs. Drake, as you come up, we're gonna, okay, we're gonna pull item RS-23-131. So can I get a motion and second for do you have anything? I'm sorry about that. Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I would just like to hopefully have our city attorney provide clarity for some of the questions regarding OR 23-015.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda, remaining items.
Okay, anyone else before, that's it? Can I get a second to that motion? Mayor Pro Tem Cobb.
I second the motion.
All in favor for the consent agenda item except RS-23-131 and OR-23-015. They have been pulled. Mayor Pro Tem, will you vote, please? Motion carries 7-0. Good evening, Mrs. Drake.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Do you have any particular questions Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, the citizen asked for an explanation on item B1, B4, and the rate of cost for each house, I believe was the third part.
I believe B1 and B4 had to do with the cost. As that was the terms of the contract. So the administration is $175 per property. The auditing would be $2,000 per audit. We're estimating a minimum of 2 audits. The discovery and recovery is 45% contingency fee, and then the short-term rentals are $255 per property, and we're estimating right now 460, and we'll be able to adjust that based on how many properties register. Right now, there's anywhere from 400 to 800, and that fluctuates depending on seasonal listings. But as you can see with the expense, there's also offsetting short-term rental revenue that comes in from the hotel occupancy tax revenue. Because the short-term rentals do pay hotel occupancy tax revenue, and that's part of the Chapter 31 ordinance that was set by City Council back in April.
Thank you. I think the second part of my, and I don't know if, I guess either city manager or city attorney could answer. A short-term rental, we defined inside the ordinance, so it's a minimum amount of days. It's not a last minute.
We do define it in the ordinance. I would have to look it up to find that ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, one question.
Mr. Cagle.
Currently, when we collect hotel motel tax throughout the city, don't we use a vendor on that process?
Yes, sir. It's the same vendor. It's Avenue, and currently we have 42 hotels that we collect hotel
Right, and
occupancy tax.
we currently and in the past have paid for that out of hotel motel, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. That was one of my questions. Thank you, Mrs. Drake. Can I get a motion to approve? Are there any more questions? Can I get a motion to approve RS-23-131? Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve RS 23-131.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Mayor, I second that.
All in favor, yes. All opposed. Did you have any comments, Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Attorney Clemens. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. The questions, this was pulled to answer questions by citizens regarding the youth curfew ordinance. I didn't really hear questions about the youth curfew ordinance. I heard questions about the marijuana ordinance. So I'm not, the marijuana ordinance is not on your agenda, and we are in pending litigation, so I would recommend that not be discussed at length tonight, and if you want to discuss that on a future agenda, we can do that. We can talk about the legal issues, but it is a pending case.
But my hope was not to discuss the pending issues. I guess maybe just provide some clarity as to what the difference is. Can we go there with what the difference is as to why we're responding to one versus the other? That seems to be the question.
Mm-hmm. One main difference has been brought up already is that it was a petition by citizens. Citizens adopted this ordinance rather than city council itself. There are a myriad of other differences that have been addressed in briefings to the court and will be litigated in the pending litigation.
Any more questions? Can I get a motion to approve OR-23-015? Councilmember Alvarez.
Mayor, I move to approve OR 23-015.
Did I say zero? OR-23-015. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Second.
All, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, you have, all in favor, yes, all opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. We will now have our public hearing. Council, you have 3 times each to speak for 3 minutes. Madam Secretary.
PH 23045, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance amending the FY 2023 annual budget of the City of Killeen to increase revenue and expense accounts in multiple funds. The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Killeen, Texas, amending the FY 2023 annual budget of the City of Killeen to increase revenue and expense accounts in multiple funds, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing a savings clause, and establishing an effective date."
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mrs. Drake went over the slides last week. Do you want her to go back over the slides? Okay. Councilwoman Gonzalez, do you have a question for Mrs. Drake? Okay. Thank you. We'll now open up the public hearing. Sean Price. Good evening, sir. You have,
4 minutes.
yes, sir.
So again, like I spoke last week, I was in disagreement with increasing any revenue from the citizenry, right? So I'm saying, don't raise my taxes. Reduce my taxes. Make it easier for me to keep my house. Again, like I said, I paid $211 to the bank, but I paid $378 to the city. Now, that's in combination with KISD. What are we increasing our budget for? What are we buying with this extra money? Especially when the drainage area in my neighborhood is not being done because of the increased costs or whatever. So, again, what is the increased revenue in the expense accounts when my taxes are expected to go up by almost 21% this year alone? I want to know what I'm buying, what y'all are spending money on, because I'm not getting any more services, but I am getting better services due to our new police chief. So that is a positive. Our police chief is a man of action, and I appreciate his efforts in my neighborhood. It's a dramatic change. But I'm not getting better drainage. I'm not getting any benefits from all this added expense. And I'm just wondering, what is it going to? What are we buying? What am I paying for? Because it's pricing me out of my house. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Melissa Brown. Good evening. You have 4 minutes.
In almost any other budget amendment public hearing, I'd come up and tell you that it was a waste of time for citizens to even come up and talk because it's a formality vote. However, because we're doing it this time of year, it's really not a formality vote at all. Why continue to amend the current FY budget that's only going to be in place for another 5 weeks when we can just build this into the FY24 budget? Every time we make an amendment, it makes things a little bit cloudier when it comes to checking and double checking. Every time you move numbers around, it makes an audit a little more difficult to keep up with. It makes those numbers get a little bit fuzzier, and sometimes numbers get transcribed. I don't know, information gets put into the wrong account. I would have personally requested, and I've meant to do so during my citizen comment when I didn't have enough time, that the request for the resolutions to go ahead with especially the Tremere Creek Basin project be postponed or tabled, until after this item, so that the council could actually discuss it before making a decision on approving an amount of money that went over budget. So we've got a bunch of right-of-way acquisitions that we have to have for a project that is supposed to be, in my understanding, to fix an issue that we didn't have to begin with, because this is being put in for the sake of KISD and the new middle school that they want to build. So now we are paying land acquisition for that. Why are we paying for land acquisition? Now, I would ask the council to definitely not approve that portion of it, because if this is being done for the benefit primarily at this point in time for a different organization, that is their own political subdivision with their own budget, that is at least 4 times more than ours, they should be able to pay for their own land acquisition, especially because they're not paying a full 50% of the total project. I'd also like to ask, what is the downtown project? And with all due respect, I'm going to ask that before I go back over, at least some of my questions get answered, because apparently I'm the only one where the mayor will not ask the city manager to answer the questions, but instead will ask him if he wants to answer the questions, and we all know that the answer to that is going to be no almost every time. I would just like to add in, before I conclude talking about this, instead of taking up y'all's time on the next item, I am in full support of approving the next public hearing item. But in the meantime, what is the downtown project that we're reallocating money to? And why are we not just building this into the FY24 budget? Because we're not going to pay all of these bills before October 1. If I could get the answers.
Once you finish, you will be answered if they choose to. You have
Then you did
51,
not-
you have 48
Well, I
seconds.
had a minute and one when you stopped. So I will go back to asking the mayor then to please ask the city manager to answer the questions, because I'm the only person who's come up to speak where you have not asked for the questions to be answered. You have just asked, do they want to answer the question? I think it's important that these get answered, because the longer you wait, the more likely things are forgotten about. Just like the discussion item you had at the beginning, if we can table it long enough, it can be forgotten about. If it's not tabled, if it's addressed immediately, if it's not done like it was on Thursday, where questions are answered after everybody has had an opportunity to speak, some of these would have already been answered. So again, I would like to request that these questions be answered before I leave the podium, or at least.
Ma'am, your time is up. If any council member would like to answer a question of the city manager, you can. I cannot make you answer a question. Would anyone like to answer the question? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. And I think the reason other people ask clear questions, and there's not a series of multiple run-ons that you can't keep up with. So the first thing she's talking about, the sewer line between the Chaparral High School and the new middle school. It's not just primarily, it's needed now for the school, but it will serve a much larger basin. So it really makes sense. It's an efficient use, because the taxpayers pay taxes to both the city and the school district. And it makes sense to do it right the first time. We see so many times how much more it costs to not do things right the first time. So perhaps the drainage project, if that project had been built correctly, when it was done, we wouldn't be talking about a $1.2 million drainage fix at that time. It might have been $50,000, I don't know. So we're trying to do it right the first time, because it will serve much more than the school district. We could have had them waste $750,000 on a force main that would have served nothing but those 2 facilities. Instead, it's going to serve a much larger area with gravity flow that is much easier to maintain than a force main. So hopefully I answered that question. The other question, I see Kate was at the back. She can give a more complete answer to the downtown project than I can.
Thank you.
The
Ms.
other
Kate,
question
would you
on that was,
please
why are
come
we
up
paying land
and
acquisition?
answer the question, please, about the downtown project?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This funds will be used to do a local muralist is coming in to do a live mural during Touchdown Downtown, and so we're excited to have more public art and then also the live street activation with that.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle.
What's the date?
September 9th, so it will be completed this
Yeah,
fiscal
it's
year.
before October 1, yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. And for the record, any resident that comes up here has the right to ask questions. Any council member or staff member or Mr. Cagle, they already know that they can answer the question or not. Because this presentation was presented last week, and this is the second time. Can I get a motion to approve PH-23-045? Mayor Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve PH 23045.
Thank you. Councilmember Alvarez.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion passed 7-0. Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready.
PH 23046, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by CSH Avenue Heights LTD on behalf of SSK Lodging LLC, case number Z2306, to rezone approximately 3.92 acres out of the WH Cole Survey, abstract number 150, 701, 1 through 4, north side from B5 Business District to R3A Multifamily Apartment Residential District. The property is locally addressed as 2600 Illinois Avenue, Killeen, Texas. The caption of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending the City of Killeen zoning ordinance by changing the zoning of approximately 3.92 acres out of the WH Cole Survey, abstract number 150, 701, 1 through 4, north side from B5 Business District to R3A Multifamily Apartment Residential District, providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mr. Rivera presented the slides last week. Would you like for him to go back through the slides? Thank you. Would the applicant like to say anything before we go into public hearing? Okay, thank you. Public hearing open, public hearing closed. Can I get a motion to approve PH-23-046? Mayor Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve PH 23046.
Councilmember Adams.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. And real briefly, I just want to thank the applicant because I know that this is going to do a lot for our community here. I know we're short of places to live, and we had a shortage, and I think that in the long run, this goes to what I've been talking about here in our area, because if we don't do things like that, rental prices will continue to skyrocket. And I just wanted to take a moment to show my appreciation to you guys that are doing this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Sagara, because it is important to bring more development to the north side of Killeen. With that being said, did we vote on that motion already?
We did.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready.
PH 23047, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance requested by Quintero Engineering LLC on behalf of 9 property owners, case number Z2315, to amend the Plan Unit Development PUD standards for the Rosewood Springs Planned Unit Development Ordinance Number 19017 to increase the maximum square footage of leased owned business area within the commercial properties from 5,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. The properties are generally located on the east side of Rosewood Drive at the intersections of Rosewood Drive and Rose Garden Loop, Killeen, Texas. The caption of the ordinance reads, An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Killeen by amending the zoning of the property generally located on the east side of Rosewood Drive at the intersection of Rosewood Drive and Rose Garden Loop, Killeen, Texas. To amend the Plan Unit Development, PUD, standards for the Rosewood Springs Plan Unit Development, ordinance number 19017, by increasing the maximum square footage of leased owned business areas within the commercial properties from 5,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet, and by prohibiting the sale of secondhand goods, providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mr. Rivera reviewed the slides last week. Would you like for them to review them again? Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. Is the applicant here? If so, would you like to speak? Good evening, sir. Would you please state your name?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me here tonight. George Mesa with Quintero Engineering. I think we had some great discussions last week at workshop over this project, and I just wanted to reiterate a few key points. Number one being that we have validated a plat with the city staff to combine two lots into one, essentially doubling the land area to 2 acres. Second point would be that we are not looking at building a standalone store. It will be a plaza that will provide additional lease spaces for other businesses, being professional offices, restaurants, anything that's allowed within that PUD. And then the last item is that it was brought to my attention by the owner when we originally did the PUD that the intention for the PUD was to always have 10,000 square foot between us and the developer. That was something that was written between us. It wasn't something that was provided by staff, and it just slipped through the cracks. But the intention of that original PUD was always meant to be a minimum square foot lease space of 10,000 square feet. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you guys may have. I do know that the owner of the lots is here, as well as the developer that is building the structure. If you guys have any.
It might be some questions. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one question. I understand when this was, PD was first proposed, it was a gateway project, that being the entrance to Killeen. The one question is, what type of dollar store is likely to go into that location?
That is a better question suited for the person developing, which he's here and can answer that for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, sir. Would you please state your name?
Sure thing. Will Schnaukenberg, Dollar Tree Stores, Inc.
Okay.
Store.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, they may have questions later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry. Councilmember Sagara?
Yeah, I got a question for him. I know that when you guys bring in a business, you guys do like market research, and as I always say, as a business person, you know, it's what the citizens want. You know, a lot of times people say we don't want this, but it's driven by demand. And on your market research, did you guys feel that there was a demand in that area for a Dollar Tree? Is that one of the reasons why, or what kind of market research did you do to say, you know, this is a location that really needs one?
So for that particular, the market research is really driven more by the tenant themselves than us. They've sort of come to us and said, hey, this would work given the demographics and the traffic flow for what they're looking to do, more so than driven from my end saying, hey, this is what we should do with this. They're the ones coming to us saying, so they're really more the question, you know, the ones that drive that.
Yeah, and I was just asking because I know that's a good area right there, and we just want to make sure that things are there that people really need, because I know like we talked about this, I know this has nothing to do with it, but we talked about car washes, and there's like one right across the other, and it's like, why do we just keep throwing things out there and then just building it? Is there such a high demand for things like this, and such great location, and we just want to make sure we're utilizing it, because I think that, we're going to continue to grow. And we want to make sure that we're using that in accordance with, there's a lot of residents in that area. And I just want to make sure that that's what they really need in that area. So, thank you.
Hey, and Councilmember Sagara, I think the closest dollar store, general dollar store, family dollar store, I think the closest one would be on Stan Sluter. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. Stan Schluter and Knight's Way.
Okay. I'm talking about in the city of Killeen.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
I just curious, just and in a sense that, be careful I don't break any rules, but how many Dollar Trees do we have in the city now?
I don't know for the exact number. I honestly want to say maybe 2. I know there's one by Hobby Lobby. And then I think there's probably one on Stan Schluter somewhere else. The Dollar Tree specific one. As far as like dollar stores, I don't know the exact number for that.
Okay. That changed my follow-up question.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember Solomon.
Okay, I know the tenants wanted to have this, but from that area, the results I've gotten, they do not want this. Now, you've had a community meeting, I believe, in 2019, and we were not, it's totally different than what we were told at the community meeting on W.S. Young. So it's totally different, and I've had a chance to go over there, and somewhere it changed. It's supposed to have been the Gateway, it's supposed to have been a premium. I believe it was supposed to be a HOA. Is it going to still be an HOA?
It already is in an HOA, sir.
Oh, it is?
Yes, sir.
It's part of that, because I understand that part of it was HOA, then some of it was not going to be.
The residential aspect of it, for as far as I know, is part of the HOA, and within the HOA, there is 2 other components. One is the actual gated community aspect of it, and then there's the rest of the residential development.
Okay, so.
With different fees and things like that.
Okay. Okay, so again, this is not from what I'm getting, they was really totally against this in terms of the design. We were told, now we were for, we said, okay, we'll go with it because we understood that it could have been anything. But what the owners were telling us that it could have been anything there, but we choose to put homes there. I believe it's supposed to be garden homes.
There's garden homes there, sir.
Yeah, there's about 4 garden homes, maybe 10 garden homes, but there's 50 duplexes.
So if I could speak on that.
Yes, sir.
The development for that neighborhood is actually still underway. As many of you know, it's driven by the market and what the market demands. The lot designations that were determined to either be townhomes, duplexes, which we were, I want to say that we were only doing a total of 15 duplexes or some number similar to that. It was low. The single-family homes and the garden homes, all of those actual lot designations are staying true to what they were when we originally passed the PUD. We're not asking for any changes to the residential aspect of it, so everything that was designated as a garden home or a townhome is still that way. As far as construction of why it has not filled out as the way it should, is just based off of the market. Prices have gone up, cost of materials has gone up, interest rates are now a little bit higher. Just kind of a mix of everything of those. But the intention is still to develop it to the full extent of what it is. Last week you asked some questions, great questions about the gated community and the community center. And those things are still being worked on. We've met with city staff to talk about the gates and the mechanics of the actual gate and when will they be open, how will fire department access them, those kind of things. We've actually entered into a contract with the developer of the full development to go ahead and start the civil plans of the community center. So all those things are still being worked on. It's a work in progress. It'll just take some time to fill it out.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
You're welcome. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I believe we mentioned this at last week's workshop, but if this was not approved, it doesn't mean that a dollar store wouldn't go there. It would be a smaller footprint. Is that correct?
It would be limited to 5,000 square feet. That's essentially what would end up happening. The actual building structure of being a plaza center with multiple lease spaces, under the current PUD, we're still technically allowed to do that. The only thing that we're asking for is an increase in lease space. And honestly, with the increase of lease space, hopefully this becomes a project where it starts filling out that corridor and more development and restaurants and things end up getting built there. I know that some smaller restaurants, maybe not like Chewy's, like the standalone ones, but there's a Korean barbecue place on Stanschluter that I believe is more than 5,000 square feet itself. And having something like that in this neighborhood would definitely, approving this PUD would definitely allow for something like that to possibly go there. Not maybe within just this one lot, but every other lot that you see that's sitting vacant along Rosewood.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that so it wouldn't be a surprise, depending on how this vote goes here today, that, if it was to be turned down, that citizens aren't surprised and they're saying, well, I thought the city turned that down. Well, there's still a dollar store there. It's just smaller. So.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Another question just came up. There's a building on West Stanschluter, 3,000 West Stanschluter. It's a large, I'm assuming it's probably about 10,000 square foot. But my question is, the design for this building, proposed 10,000 square foot, and the development, do we have any images of what it may look like?
As far as like renderings? No, sir, not at this time.
Okay.
But I will say that all of those construction plans have been, they have been prepared in the manner that the city council has, or staff or city council, for as far as like the architectural standards. We're not looking to kind of get away from doing any of that. As far as this development goes, there is PUD standards and both the city's architectural standards that have to be taken into effect and applied to this project itself.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because, this 3,000 West Stanschluter is over in my district, and it's just an eyesore. The paint color, the lack of architectural details, and I hope we don't have that anywhere else in the city of Killeen. That's all I was trying to see if we had any type of rendering. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. This is my last one. And I just want to say thank you to Councilman Alvarez, and thank you for that last question, for clarifying that we're not voting against, the Dollar Tree, and for explaining that effort, because I think what we're trying to do as council, what we're trying to make sure is that that continues to be a little bit upscale. I know the developer and everybody there did such a great job bringing that community and making it upscale. And, that's a really nice area for Killeen. And so I think that the concern is just we want to make sure that it continues to be that way, And so a lot of times I know commercial property, especially there by the highway, it's high priced, and we end up putting things, because they're going to make money, but, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest thing is it just didn't make any sense how we got car washes right next to each other. And it's like, how did we let that slip by? That is just ridiculous. And that's the kind of things we don't want. So, I mean, if they continue to bring in, especially what you said, restaurants and all that, then I think that's a good thing. And with that, I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cagle.
I just want to make sure everyone understands the architectural standards they're following are just on the commercial, not the residential, and no repetition standards in the residential as well.
Thank you. So I remember, I think 2017, 18, in the planning phase of this development, affordability of housing is very important. And in that area, I remember, and you can correct me, because I attended several of the meetings, that in that area where you're gonna have different, like a medical facility, doctors, different kind of stores in that area. And the top priority was affordability and seniors. As you get up in age like me and you decide you don't want to manage a large home, you would look for something smaller. And that was the biggest thing, I think, for the residents that did attend and that had questions, is that it should be in an area where you can walk to everything. So a restaurant would be nice. The medical facility they talked about, because it's right by the Rosewood nursing home, and it was going to have like the community center, and also you can have a walking trail. So everything that would be located there would be convenient for seniors. And that is still the plan.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why I think whatever the name of the store is, it really doesn't matter. But it is just assess connectivity, which is a part of our comprehensive plan, how we connect everything together. That if you walk out, and I heard it so much when it was going through the comprehensive plan, when we had was working on it, you should be able to walk out of your house or to go to a restaurant or be connected to a store or a coffee shop. And I really think that this project, in my personal opinion, is moving in that direction to be a part of our comprehensive plan. And I think no matter what, it's going to be built, regardless if it's 5,000 or 10,000, it will be there. And I love the design personally. I just think for our residents and having that connectivity to the resources and the amenities that are needed is in one area. With that being said, thank you, and you can be on standby because there may be some more questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you. Oh, you're welcome, no problem. Public hearing is open. Melissa Brown, you have 4 minutes.
Let me answer the council member's question for them. There are 4 Dollar Trees in the city of Killeen. South Fort Hood Street, 1101 2002 East Central Texas Expressway, 2802 West Dan Schluter, and 4602 East Veterans Memorial Boulevard. Those are the those are the Dollar Trees, not the Family Dollars. I will tell you that just looking, even if you want to put it in perspective, now we know at least what the store is that's going to be there. We can get a better estimate of how much traffic this is going to bring in. So if you have gone to the Dollar Tree on Central Texas Expressway, right over by the councilman's real estate office, that brings in a lot of traffic. That is a very large Dollar Tree. If you were to go to the one in Harker Heights, right over in Market Heights, that's about a half the size, and it brings in about a quarter of the traffic. So you want to ask why it's such a big deal, whether it's a 10,000 square foot or a 5,000 square foot, because you're not talking about just doubling the traffic. You're talking about quadrupling it, and then you also have to talk about the number of delivery trucks that are going to be coming in and out of there. As we discussed last week, this is a very dangerous area on that road anyway. Not to mention that if you are headed north on Rosewood coming up towards this location, the secondary ingress egress on Rosebud is a right in, right out only. So if traffic is backed up, people trying to get in and out of that primary ingress and egress, they're going to be coming towards the north, trying to turn right in there to get away from any backup that may or may not be at the other intersection, and that's around a blind corner where you've got traffic coming at 45 to 50 miles an hour at a minimum, because even though the speed limit is now 45, increase the speed limit, increase the amount of speed that everybody is doing. let's go back to this original intent thing. I don't care what the original intent was or that it slipped by. I can't get away with that excuse. Can't say my original intent was to pay my bill, but it slipped by. It just slips my mind. And so you should go ahead and not charge me anything. Let me do what I wanted to because my intent was to pay my bill. My intent was to pay my fine. And so I shouldn't have to adhere to anything other than my intent, correct? But of course, let's go back to the original intent anyway. It was supposed to be upscale. It was supposed to be gateway, something we could be proud of, something that was boutique, something that, by the way, if we had to come back and replat it and get a different platting done, I wouldn't consider that a minor change to a PUD. We've now replatted this, so this is not the original intent, was it? The original intent was not to have a 30,000 square foot building with a 10,000 square foot highly discount retail. That wasn't what we were promised at all. It was in 2019, and the mayor was actually our council member at the time for District 2. She hosted several of those town halls for us. Unanimously, every citizen came out and was against it. Concerns about traffic, concerns about flooding because of the flood zone that's there, concerns about property valuation because it's right along the backside of Deerwood Estates. The promise is that it would only be the garden homes along Deerwood Estates, but now if you go over there, you've got duplexes in front of there. And then driven by traffic flow. Well, of course, there's a lot of traffic there, and that's part of the problem I've been bringing up, but also the demographics. So let's talk about the demographic for a second. I'd like to ask the council members
Ma'am,
for one more moment.
Councilmember Alvarez? Councilmember Gonzalez? Councilmember, okay, we had enough, anybody? Okay, 1 minute.
Thank you. So let's talk about the demographics of that particular location. So across the street from there in the other PUD that was approved at the same time, that's already nearing completion and be built out, there is an apartment complex where people are paying $1,200 a month to rent a one-bedroom efficiency. Is that the demographic of people who are renting in these, are going to be going to Dollar Trees on a regular basis? Or is it just because it's off the highway, they're hoping to be able to put a high enough sign just under 30 feet? Last week, the staff said that they would not be held to having to do a TIA, except for they did a worksheet that said they would now participate in a TIA. Well, when this was first approved, original intent, even though it didn't get into writing and it slipped by, Mr. Wright said he was paying for a traffic light there. Not that we would split it proportionally, he would pay for it because he knew this was going to be a safety issue. Thank you.
Ms. Anka, you're welcome. Ms. Anka, welcome back. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Do I really have to speak after Melissa Brown? Council members, Madam Mayor. First of all, I am for this. I am for this, and I'll tell you why. I imagine living close to that area. I would like to have a variety of businesses available for me to use. A variety of businesses means different sizes of lease space. A donut shop may need 2,000 square feet. A Lifetime gym may need 10,000 square feet. Whatever the case may be, I want variety. I don't want to have to drive across town to go to the gym. I want to have businesses available to use. And this is the main reason I am for this. I don't know the history of it, okay? I don't know what was promised in the beginning, and apparently something else was promised. I'm not going to speak about that because I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of it. And also, I work in land development as an engineer, and I can tell you, as you progress on a project, the more you progress on a project, the more you learn what's needed. And there's always a change. I have not worked on any project without the need to make some changes. You understand better from a business point of view, an engineering point of view. Even as an engineer, you have to think of it as a business because no engineer works all engineers work for businesses. Businesses affect everyone. So for that reason, if the concern is the way it looks, the architecture, any business can be made to look very nice. I'm pretty sure the owner does not want to make a plain-looking building. No matter what the business is, the architecture can be made in a very nice way, and they can follow the architectural standards that we passed, that you passed, that you wanted. They want to produce a good product. And from a personal point of view, if I were to live there, I would want a variety of businesses available. And for that reason, I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Wright. Good evening, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Jim Wright, and I am one of the owners of the subdivision and development. And there are a few things that weren't correct that was said, but first of all, before I get to that, Ms. Brown likes to talk about traffic, et cetera. This project, without any changes, we can put a 30,000 square foot building on 1 acre. What we're talking about here, and if you did a 30,000 square foot building with 2,000 square foot tenants, you got 15 2,000 square foot tenants. And you can't tell me that those 15 businesses will not generate more traffic than a 22,000 square foot building that these people want to build with one 10,000 square foot tenant and the rest smaller tenants. That's my first thing on the traffic. I don't think the traffic is going to be impacted any more with what we're proposing than what it would be if we don't change one thing. Number two, several people have talked about promises and whatever. We're going by all of the architectural structures. We're going by everything we've promised. There will be a community building. There is a dog park. There will be a dog park. I think the dog park may be there. I'm not sure. There will be a walking trail. The problem is I don't have $10 or $15 million that I can build it all at once, like some of these people that get 75-year tax abatements. We cannot do that. We don't have the money to do that. So we build as what we can build. And there are, as the engineer said, there are single-family lots that are in front of the people that, I can't think of the name of the subdivision that's south of it. There's 70-foot by 120-foot residential lots. And then adjoining that, there are garden homes and villas. We talk about affordability. The villas are similar to a duplex. They may look like a duplex. The difference being is that you can buy either side or both. So if you're looking for an affordable home, the villas are under $300,000. Point out any place in this community where you find a brand-new home for less than $300,000. I don't think you're going to find many. And they're nice, but anyway, the thing that I'm trying to get across is that Ms. Brown keeps talking about traffic. Again, there will be less traffic with what we're trying to do than what we can do today without any changes. Have any questions?
Council member and Mr. Wright, please don't call Ms. Brown name again. Council member Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. My question would be for the representative from the civil engineering company, Quintero Engineering. Resident stated that by increasing the store 5,000 square feet from 5,000 to 10,000, it would quadruple the traffic. Again, I'm not a professional engineer, nor do I pretend to be one. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, though. But In your professional opinion, do you think that that is true?
From all the TIAs that we have seen, and we've done plenty of them for different developments, whether you have two 5,000 square feet lease spaces of two different retail places, or if you have one 10,000 square foot lease space, it's still going to generate the same amount of traffic. They're based off of numbers, and you're not going to get the same amount of traffic like with restaurants and professional offices. But the numbers are always very comparable. And I would like to point out, too, is that we did do a traffic TIA with the development of that project, and what ended up being warranted was two left-hand turn lanes, which are installed right there at the entrance of the first Rose Garden Loop, that first road coming in from the north side. And it was all done at the expense of the developer. That's what was warranted, that's what was built, and that's what was accepted by the city.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One other thing, if I may, there will be a community center. We've got the lot set aside for it right at the entrance on the east side as you come into Rose Garden Loop and you turn right. When you turn right there, I think it's White Rose, I'm not positive. There will be a community center there that will serve the whole community. There's a portion there, what is it, about 50 lots?
Yes, sir.
That is the gated community, will be a gated community. There's no sense in gating it when you've got 6 structures there right now, and you can't afford to gate it because you don't get enough HOA income to pay for it. But
Yes, sir.
we
Sir,
intend to follow
your time-
everything that we
yes, sir.
have
Your time
done.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed, and I'd like to make a comment since my name was called out. In 2019, I was the councilwoman for District 2. I did host several events in reference to this development with the individuals that live close to that area, and it was open to the public. At that time, Councilmember Solomon, who lives in Deerwood, which are homes that are 300,000 and higher, and that area, a majority of the residents in that area, because it would have an effect on them and also the ones behind this development, did attend that event. All the concerns and question was raised. We talked about traffic. We talked about the development of it. And as a councilwoman for that district, which is in my district, I felt if that kind of development would be in District 2, that the residents had to have an input on it. They also brought out all of the designs to show them. So to say that they were not upset, they're mad, that was not a true statement. And Councilmember Solomon, at that time a resident, went out and talked to the residents that's in that area and got their opinion. He was on the ground talking to residents about their concerns, and every concern that they had, Councilmember Solomon, Mr. Wright talked about those issues. Once I held the forums, I removed myself from it, and he became, Councilmember Solomon, became that spokesperson along with other residents that went personally, door to door, talked to individuals about this development. So this development was not taken lightly by me because I got the residents involved, and those are some of the concerns. The connectivity of a comprehensive plan is very important because while you have a comprehensive plan, we're not going to follow it. So that is what happened in 2019 when I was the councilwoman for District 2. And this was not my decision. It was the decision by the residents, what they wanted there. And Mr. Wright clarified that the plan has not changed. And I'm not trying to push you to vote one way or the other, but because someone come and speak, that doesn't mean it's true. And you cannot just throw things in the atmosphere and just leave it there. It has to be corrected. With that being said, do anyone have any more questions concerning that item? Mayor Pro Tem.
Wow. You want what you want. You want a safe home. You want stores. You want everything looking good. You want to afford it. But the thing about when we start doing and building and putting things intact, we've got to have a little hope that we're able to work clean and get this done. Had an argument with it, well, not an argument, but a discussion with a friend in reference to HOA or living in a community, and that how we put things in effect and how safe and secure and how it feels good. Walking parks, there's a lot that's going into this. So hearing and listening, I move to approve PH 23047.
Councilmember Sagara.
Second that.
All in favor, yes? Oh, anyone more discussion on this?
Yes.
Councilmember Solomon. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for Councilmember Solomon. And I do understand the market analysis and what role it plays and what role the market plays. We're also council members that represent citizens. So my question is, from your conversation with your citizens in your district, what was the overwhelming preference relating to this?
Thank you, Councilmember Boyd. The overwhelming concerns were that they did not want that because they thought that it was the way that it was told to us in that meeting. And I want to say, from my perspective at that meeting, what I remember, that meeting was, we had the majority of the community there. And I'll have to say, at that time, Madam Mayor did a good job pulling everybody together to hear what that development was going to be. But there were a lot of disagreements there. And I can remember. And I think that from what I have gotten, not since the meeting, but, since the meeting, they don't want it. That it's the whole thing is what, now I understand what they were saying, that, hey, it's going to, I went out there, it's the trail, I've seen where the community building is going to go. We had a lot of problems with that, with the water, some type of retaining pond, the retaining pond. It had really, the concern of that with the whole Deerwood area. The neighbors was complaining because they did not address that. They felt that it wasn't addressed right. I've got letters. I've got concerns that, hey, we don't want this. And then
They don't want the dollar store. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez, and then we'll go to the city attorney, because we off subject. Okay, go ahead on, Councilwoman Gonzalez.
I was going to say, just to be clear, we're not voting on the dollar store or not as it relates to this project. And it's been said that if they were to move forward with this the way it is now or the way it is modified, the plaza versus the box, they can still do whatever they want to do in that space. My hope is that they would hear the people's voices and understand that. But I have a little bit of a challenge because according to what we have here before us is that, there were 107 people notified and only one written response in opposition. And so I'm looking at that, and then I'm also looking at the fact that even if we said no, we're not voting on the dollar store. So even if we said no to the expansion, they can still do what they want to do regardless. So my hope is that the developer and the people that are involved in this project do still hear what the people are saying and still feed into that desire to have something meaningful and something nice that's going to be a high-quality space. But I just can't justify that because we're not talking about a dollar store at this point. We're talking about a facility. Do you want the plaza or the box? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Gonzalez, and that's one way or the other, but to send it out in 107 people and only one in opposition. Madam City Attorney.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a quick clarification on the motion to approve the PUD amendment, because the PUD amendment as requested, or there was a recommendation by staff to add a condition, and there's a recommendation that by P and Z that was slightly different than staff. So I just wanted to make sure for the record, we're getting what council's intent is.
Staff recommendation or as is? That's what she's asking. She says staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Is you okay, are you okay, who second that?
Mr. Scar,
Are you okay with that, Councilmember Cigar? All right. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. And thank you, Madam City Attorney.
Yeah.
Motion passes 5-2 with Councilmember Adams and Councilmember Boyd in opposition. Madam Secretary, when you are ready, we can move to the next item.
PH 23048, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by Julia Doro on behalf of J. Brez LLC, Series B, case number Z2318, to rezone approximately 1 acre being part of the J.J. Roberts Survey, abstract number 731-753-2, from R1 Single Family Residential District to M1 Manufacturing District. The property is locally addressed as 5200 East Veterans Memorial Boulevard, Killeen, Texas. The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance amending the City of Killeen zoning ordinance by changing the zoning of approximately 1 acre being part of the J.J. Roberts Survey, abstract number 731-753-2, from R1 Single Family Residential District to M1 Manufacturing District, providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for an effective date."
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Staff, Mr. Rivera went through the side. Madam City Attorney, did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay, I'll move you off. Mr. Rivera went through this, reviewed the slides last week. Would you like for him to review them again? All right. Is the applicant here? If so, this is our last item. If the applicant is here, would you like to speak? Oh, no, ma'am. Okay. All right. Public hearing, open. Public hearing, closed. Councilmember Alvarez.
Mayor, I move to approve PH 23-048 as presented.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I second.
Any discussion? Councilmember Boyd, you have any discussion, sir?
No.
All right, all in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 6-0 with Councilmember Solomon not voting on the item. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Okay, Councilmember Boyd?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.